Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is the first ever women's bodybuilding wheelchair IFBB Pro National Champion, which is so amazing. And I personally have met this woman, and we'll talk a little bit about how we got to know each other at an event and why we're here now. So she is a mother to 5 kids ranging from age 12 to 27, who's been married to her husband for 30 years and decided to start competing in 2022 in Bikini at age 51 to do what she has always wanted to do, but didn't have the courage or the discipline to do. And then she went from Bikini division to women's bodybuilding division by accident and earned her pro card at her 7th show at the first Wheelchair Nationals. A lifetime fitness guru who started her path at 16 years old teaching aerobics, and by 19 was at the Reebok National Aerobics Championship. She loves biking, hiking, swimming, and weight training. Welcome to the show, SHARLA Peterson. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Celeste.
You're
I
welcome.
have enjoyed listening to you. You have like the best voice. It's so positive and happy and cheerful. And when you do your interviews, everything just flows. I really enjoy listening to your podcast and listening to all the people you bring on. So this is
Thank you so much. That's so awesome. I appreciate that. And I'll share a really brief story with you. Well, when I was doing like career interest profiling in high school, one of the things that it suggested and said that I'd be good for was radio host and counselor. Not
Wow.
even kidding you. And at the time I was like, no, I'm trying to be a fitness coach. I didn't even ever think that this would be it. So it's just so funny. So to hear that, it means a lot to me, and I'm so grateful for your time.
Well, your test was right on. So
Yeah, apparently. Oh my God. I'm like, these things are good. I guess there's some validity to this. So, I got to ask you then, if there's anything you do or think about right before you hit the stage.
Well, that has developed over experience getting on the stage. And so on my 3rd competition at the Whitney Jones, I won 1st place. And so 2 weeks later, I was going into another show. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I won 1st. And I was getting all excited and kind of hyping up backstage. There was, we're all lined up and there's music going on and we're all just kind of jamming. I was all excited. So I get out on stage and that excitement just kind of made me shake more. Like I couldn't hold my composure. I felt like I was breathing a little heavy.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wasn't holding my poses very well. Like I kept having to move or like reposition. And I ended up getting 2nd. And I blame it to my
Excitement.
to that, like I didn't hold my composure well. Like I was flustered or whatever it was. And so ever since then, I'm like, okay, never again am I going to get all hyped up and like excited. So then the next month I went to Masters Nationals, which was in Anaheim, and we were all lined up and there's 9 of us in my group. And we were all lined up and everyone's talking. And I was standing right next to a lady that was like super chill. I mean, she'd talk and everything, but she was just like, her composure was so chill. And I like that. And so I'm like, oh, I like this. And so when we went on stage, I stood right next to her and I just would look at her and I would just be, calm. She just made me feel really calm.
Wow.
And I ended up getting 2nd at nationals, which was awesome. It was more than what I wanted, but I learned from that to always be calm. And so now when I go on, like the next 2 times I've gone on, my first one at the Arnold, I just remember thinking, to be calm. Like I'm going to go out, I'm going to be calm, and I'm just going to hit my poses. And I also, another thing that helps me is knowing the judge before I went out. So like I knew Becky Clausen was going to be my judge, and that just knowing who she was just gave me confidence. And so it was just those two things, just knowing that I'm going to go out, I'm going to be calm.
Mhm.
And that's just really helped me. So that was an experience that helped me, so that every time I go on, I'm like, I'm going to be really calm. I can do this. I can handle this. And I just remember how calm this lady was. So
How do you get into that calm state now?
it's just, it's mental. I kind of imagine myself being out there and hitting all of my poses, and just that kind of like a feeling of like, I just get myself calm, where I can just close my eyes and be like, okay, I've got this, like a breath, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I got this, I can do this, I'm ready. And I'm just going to be calm. So I just tell myself I'm going to be calm. And
Wow.
that actually helped when I went scuba diving, because I just recently went adaptive scuba diving, and it was the same thing. From the moment we started training, I'm like, it's all going to be okay. All I have to do is be calm and breathe. And and that just got me through everything with the scuba diving. So it applies to a lot of things in life.
That's so true. To be able to self-regulate and control our breath or get ourselves into a nervous system state that is relaxed and ready to see opportunities or ways out, essentially. Because when we're like flustered, we don't execute as efficiently, confidently, or effectively. So usually when we've practiced our posing, we then go out there and it doesn't come out the same way. Or if we've kind of envisioned, okay, this is what's going to be like to get underwater, but then we get there and we don't put ourselves in that state of mind or body, it actually can eliminate the chances of us executing properly.
Yeah, it's so true. It's just like a mental thing, because a lot of things can go wrong, and then it's like you don't want to start freaking out. So if you think I'm
Yeah.
going to be calm no matter what happens, then you can get through those difficult moments. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to dive into just the history. So you and I had met at a glam girl retreat that I was speaking and coaching at, and I was really surprised when I didn't see you at all on my Instagram feed for a very long time until I saw that you went pro. And I was telling you this before we started recording that I was confused because I saw that it was in wheelchair bodybuilding. And I was like, well, when did that happen? And how did that happen? And what's going on? And I need to get her on the podcast. Like, this is all, and not even just to tell your story, but because I truly believed that you were on the path to going pro in bikini as well. We heard this part of your story. And so I was so excited to talk to you about your bikini competition journey and then this transition. But let's walk through, now that we've heard some of your history, let's walk through what actually happened and how did it happen? And then we'll kind of get into your advocacy efforts and how life has transformed.
So I competed in 2022. I had done 5 competitions. And the end of the year, I knew I needed to take some time off to build muscle and get stronger so I could continue competing. And I wanted to, but I had a couple of hernias from pregnancy. I had one in the groin, the inguinal, that was starting to bug me every time I was working legs. And so I thought, I probably ought to just get it fixed, just take some time off. And so they actually ended up finding 4 hernias instead of the 2 I knew about. And I had a pretty good diastasis recti. And so they did that as well. And so my surgeon told me, I don't want you to do any core work for a year. He says, I know your type. I know you're going to push yourself. I know you're going to work hard, and I'm going to be extreme, but I don't want you to work your core. And so like the first 3 months, I pretty much did nothing. I think I started walking around the block at about 8 weeks. At about 3 months, I started going back to the gym, working my upper body, and then slowly was working my lower body. And I wanted, because I knew I wasn't going to compete that year, but I wanted something to kind of keep me going.
Yeah.
And Glam Girl had a 90-day challenge. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this 90-day challenge and get myself fit and everything. And so we're doing the challenge. I think we're maybe 4 weeks in, and Amy says, hey, maybe you could do the new competition coming up. It's the Ben Weider Natural in November. And so I'm like, you really think I could do it even if I'm not working my core? And she's, yeah, you could. And I thought, that'd be great. Let's work for it. So I was beginning to get my strength back. I was working my glutes a lot, but not using like squats yet. So I was doing a lot of bridges, a lot of hip thrusts, things that you can do. And so it was now July, 7 months past my repair, and we were ready to go up a little bit on what I'm capable of doing. And my doctor said it was okay that I could start doing some squats and some deadlifts. And so it's my youngest daughter, who was 11 at the time, is a volleyball player. And so I signed her up for volleyball camp, which was in Utah at Brigham Young University. And I have an older daughter who was 19 at the time, and she lives there. So we went up to visit her while we were doing volleyball camp. So it's the first day we dropped her off at volleyball camp, and my daughter and I went to a new gym I've never been to. And we are working out, we're warming up, and we're getting ready. And so the first thing we do after our, 20 minutes of warm up is the Smith machine. And this is my first time back on the Smith machine. I'd done it several times. And so one thing is I think it was turned around. Like it wasn't facing the mirror. And I wanted to face the mirror because I wanted to watch myself, right? And so I'm like, well, maybe it doesn't matter. And I wasn't really sure. And so we were taking turns. So she went first. And I went and I kind of added a little bit more weight as I was going along. And like, hey, this is good. I'm feeling good. And my daughter's like, Mom, your glutes are really looking good. Like she just made this comment that, my glutes were starting to look really good. And so then I was on my fourth set. So she was done. And I was on my fourth set. And so I'm probably on like number 6. I was trying to hit like 8, I think, 8 reps. And I think I was on number 6. And I had already gone down. And so now I'm on my way up. And as I'm coming up, my back burst. So I had my vertebrae, the L1 vertebrae burst in half, and one piece went right into my spinal cord. So at that point I was paralyzed from the waist down. And so here I am holding a bar and my legs start to collapse underneath me. And I'm going under, and like I can feel it in the back of my neck, like the weight here. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get off? I'm like, I didn't know what to do. And with the Smith machine, you can just click it, right? But I just didn't know what to do. And because I couldn't move, I couldn't think, and I just knew I was going down. And so I yelled, help. And as I yelled out, I kind of pushed myself back, and I landed on the ground. And the lady who had checked us in was like right next to me. Either she was putting equipment away or she was working out. I'm not sure, but she was right there. And I said, call 911. I broke my back. And she was on the phone immediately. And I just lay there, like, couldn't believe what happened. And I'm just trying to catch my breath. I had no pain at that point. I had just felt a burst of warmth go down my legs. And so then I'm laying on the ground and I can't move anything below my waist. I can't feel anything. And my glutes felt like a bag of water. It was the weirdest thing, because I was like touching my glutes, and it was like, when you have that numbness from the dentist, like it just feels like squishy and weird. And it was just like the weirdest feeling. And so I just kind of held myself up, because I didn't want to lay down, because I wanted to breathe. So I was just sitting there trying to breathe, and I knew the ambulance was coming, and my daughter was on the phone calling my husband. And anyway, the paramedics came really fast. I mean, it was probably 5-10 minutes. It was pretty quick. And so they were, they're putting IVs in me and starting to pump me up with a bunch of stuff. And the lady that had called 911, she was holding my head and just kind of stroking my hand, which was like the sweetest thing ever. I mean, I when people are there comforting you when you're in a situation like that, even a total stranger, it was just so nice to have her there. And I remember thinking, okay, let's hurry up, get to the hospital, get this fixed so I can get back to the gym and get going with with this plan I have, And so once we get into the ambulance, my daughter's following me in her car, and this is when the pain hits, and I'm in the ambulance and I start screaming. It's just like the worst pain I've ever felt in my whole life. And luckily it would kind of come and go. So it would, like, I'd scream and scream and scream, and then it would kind of calm down, and then it would come back. So we get into the hospital. My daughter's there. Now she sees me screaming, because before she didn't see any
Yeah.
of the pain. And so then she's crying because she doesn't want to see me in pain. And they take me in to get an x-ray. They see the issue. They say they're going to do an emergency surgery, and the surgeon happened to be there. The one that was on call was in the hospital. So I was in surgery really fast, which is really helpful, because when you have a spinal cord injury, the longer that cord is being pinched off, the farther the damage. And so my husband canceled all of his appointments and flew out to Utah, and I went into surgery, and it was about a 3-hour surgery. When I came out, my husband was there, and I had some movement in my legs. So before I had nothing. And then after the surgery, I was able to extend my knees, but I had no ankle movement, no toe movement. And I couldn't, like, I didn't have any hamstring strength at all, no glutes or hamstring strength. So it was just like quads. So I got my quads back, basically. And my sensation, I had sensation where my quads were, a little bit in the back, a little bit on my hamstrings, a little bit in my calves, and a little bit in my, like, the farther down it went, I had a little less and a little bit less sensation. In my toes, I could barely feel something, but I did have a little bit of sensation there. So it was a positive thing that, I was able to get some movement back. And the spine doctor, or the surgeon, he came in, and he's like, well, I've fused the 2 bones above that fracture and the 2 bones below it, put in 2 rods and 8 screws. And he says, so the next time you go back and do squats, you are set. You're going to be able to go as heavy as you want.
That is awesome. I love that positivity.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's like, just keep looking at your toes, keep trying to wiggle them, try to get movement, mentally think about it. He was very optimistic that things should come back. And so, I kind of felt like on a positive vibe, like, okay, we're going to get through this. It's going to get better. And, but, as the days went on, it was like, how long is this going to take? It just, spinal cord injury, you just never know what's going to happen, and how well you're going to recover, and how quickly. Everybody's spinal cord injury is different. So I can keep telling the story if you want, or
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm listening.
okay. So I only had bed therapy, like physical therapy in bed, where they would move my legs a little bit back and forth in the bed when I was in the hospital. In Utah, I was there for 1 week. And also I forgot to mention that the very night that this had happened, I had picked up my younger daughter from volleyball camp, and she would go during the day and then come at night with us. And so they went to pick her up, and they're like, mom's in the hospital and dad's here. And, it's just like, she comes out of this volleyball camp going, what happened, today? So it's a little bit crazy. But anyway, on the 4th day after my surgery, I was sitting there thinking about this 90-day challenge that we were doing. And I thought, I could still drink a gallon of water a day, and I can still read a book for 30 minutes a day, and I can still, trying to think all the things that we had to do. I'm like, I can still wave my arms up and down. Like, I couldn't use any weights, but I could, because we were supposed to do 45 minutes of weight training for the content, or for the challenge. And so I'm like, well, I can at least raise my arms up and down. And so I did that for 45 minutes every day.
Wow.
I could do face pulls, and I do lateral raises, and I do front raises, and triceps and biceps. And so I kept going with the contest. And one thing I couldn't do in the hospital was I couldn't go outside for 30-minute outdoor activity. But when I came to Arizona in the rehab hospital, they had a courtyard outside, and I was able to get up every morning before it got hot, and I pushed myself in the wheelchair for 30 minutes. And then I had my meals that I'd already prepped in Utah. I already had those, so I kept eating that in the hospital. And then when I got back to Arizona, I had my family bring in my scale, my protein shakes, and like my fruit and all these things. And so I was able to continue doing the competition the best I could. And so that was like it was a huge distraction for me, because then I didn't think about the future. I was just like, I'm just going to, keep doing this contest. And every day I had something to focus on, something to work on that I could do. So I focused on the things that I could do. And anyway, so I ended up riding an ambulance 10 hours to Arizona to go to
Wow.
the rehab hospital. And I was there for about 3.5 weeks. And they had me standing up right away. They got me into the parallel bars and, trying to get my legs moving, trying to get me to, hold my weight. And so, we just started there and went home about 3.5 weeks later. That was a big adjustment, just, getting around the house in a wheelchair, trying to, figure out, how do I do the laundry? How do I do dishes? How do I
Yeah.
reach the spices up in the cupboard? How do I get, in the shower? And I did have the fire department came in and they put in grab bars into my shower and into my bathroom for me for free. So I had that all set up, but I was able to, increase my independence pretty quickly. Like once you navigate and you learn how to do things, and, like cooking is like, use your lap for everything. Like in
Yeah.
laundry and everything, you just my lap and I'm pushing myself around. And um, it was hard getting in and out of bed. That was one thing I couldn't do by myself. So I needed help from my family. And I had a lot of neighbors, a lot of really great, great community, people coming in. My feet were super swollen. And the therapist said, you've got to get that swelling down before you come to therapy. So I had a whole group of ladies from church coming in every day, massaging my feet every morning. They would take turns and to get the swelling down before I went to therapy. And that was awesome, just to have them
Wow.
coming in and helping me out. And that it took about 6 weeks, and then I didn't have that swelling anymore. And then I had neighbors that would come in, break in through my garage and get me out of bed and get me outside so I could push my wheelchair, because my husband wanted to sleep a little bit longer, and I wanted to get up earlier. So they let him sleep, and they would come in and help me get up out of bed and get to do my exercise. So
Wow.
yeah, so I had a lot of help and a lot of support. And then I had a lot of people offer to drive me to therapy every day. And so we got through. It was tough coming home and just like everybody's like, wait, what do we do now? Like my kids and my husband is like, mom can't do this. So now we got to all help out, and we all have to, do, a little bit more around the house. So
It's a big transition for everybody.
yeah, transition.
You mentioned a few things that I want to touch back on. So I'll kind of go through it one by one. And then if we see points for expansion, we will. But you mentioned that there was really terrible pain after the incident, not immediately, but once you were going to or in the hospital. Was it localized to your back?
It was my legs. I'm trying to think now that you ask specifically where it was. It was, it was kind of all over, mostly like my hip and thighs area. It was the hip flexors. Now I remember. For
Mm.
some reason, it was the hip flexors. That's where it hurt the worst, like right in just that
Wow.
squeezing pain. It was, yeah, I don't know why, but that was the area it was hitting.
Now, you said that the surgeon was there, you got seen immediately, which is amazing. And he afterwards had a very optimistic mentality. You had some sensation in your lower body, but not as much as quickly as you maybe expected or hoped for. So then you had to begin your road to recovery. And something that you said was the adaptation, right, to your house and to your environment. And that's something I was hoping you could expand on a little bit more. Like, how did you navigate kids' schedules, the environment of your home, especially with a wheelchair? Because most homes aren't built to be compliant. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you've had to make adjustments.
Yeah, we didn't have to make too many big adjustments. I mean, I was able to like, okay, one thing with the microwave is that I know to put it on the closest edge, and as it goes around, like, so you can get it. But sometimes my husband will put things like right in the center of the microwave and I can't reach it. Like, I can't reach that. And so like certain things like that you learn. And like most of the things are now in the kitchen down on this level. So like they're instead of up on the cupboard. So like if you see my kitchen, there's like spices all lined up on the back of the, the cooking burner, and like my rice cooker and my crock pot and like my oven bake. And it's like everything is like right there on the counter. And it's kind of embarrassing because it's nice to have a clean kitchen, but now it's like there's just stuff, and it's just because it just makes it so much more convenient for me to get to. And so we learned that was one thing. It was like, okay, well, I can cook dinner if you get the spices down. But then we learned like the certain ones we use all the time, and then we put them, right there. And then, sometimes I can pull myself up to stand and I can reach some of the things now, which is nice. But that was an adaptation. And then like our bed is super high. I don't know why people buy super high beds, but we had a really high one and I couldn't get in. So I ended up sleeping with my daughter in her room because she had two twin bunk beds. So I just slept in that one. It was easy because it had a railing on the side because I needed to pull myself over, and I needed something I needed that, like the grab bars, like a hospital bed. I needed something so I could roll myself in bed. And so that worked out perfect to have that there. And so I ended up just being her roommate for a while. And so I was able to eventually, once my back restrictions were lifted and I didn't have the brace on, and I had to sleep with these boots on. Once all of that was done, I was able to get myself up and in and out of bed. And plus my hamstrings, as they got stronger, I was able to pull my legs up and then roll myself out of bed. So those things came with time. The bathroom, I can only use one bathroom because none of them have grab bars except for mine. And so, and plus my wheelchair doesn't fit into any other bathroom except for the one. And I had to take the door off. So I have no door on my bathroom, so my wheelchair can fit. And so that was an adjustment. And then the shower, we have the grab bars there, and then I have a shower chair, which, I hop in and sit on. And so, so yeah, those were, and then the door getting in and out of the house, we had to have a ramp. And so now we have a ramp there. And I don't go in the backyard because, I just don't have, the door is not set, like it doesn't stay. I mean, I probably could get another ramp back there, but there's like weightlifting stuff out there, and just like stuff that I'm like, I can't really get around. And so I don't know. I just haven't gone in my backyard. So, and it's been okay. It's not like I have to be back there because everybody else can get whatever they need back there, help the dog or get the dog food or whatever. So, and then, yeah, the biggest one was, being able to drive eventually. So,
Yeah. So are you able to now?
so yeah, I can. I am
Wow.
now since January. So yeah, it's been awesome because when you're dependent on everybody to drive and your kids want to go somewhere and you can't take them, and you're like calling all the neighbors, can you take him here? Can you take him to his friend's house? I mean, it's just, it's just like after a while you feel like, oh, I hate to ask again, but but yeah, it's just nice to have that independence back. And then when I started, because I have these AFOs that hold my ankle because I don't have any ankle movement, um, or have very little. I just don't have any, I have no muscle. They're floppy. And so I have these AFOs in the bottom of my feet. And so when I have that on, I can push the pedals with it because it gives it support. And so once I had a little bit more strength in my legs, where I could do a little bit of abduction with them, I was able to drive. So I started
Wow.
driving probably around November, but I couldn't get my wheelchair in. And so if my kids wanted to go somewhere, I said, okay, you put my wheelchair in and I'll take you where you need to go. And then I had to make sure someone was home to get my wheelchair out.
Yeah.
And so a couple times I called the neighbor, like, because I would forget, like, oh yeah, how am I getting out? And then I call a neighbor and I'm like, hey, can you come get my wheelchair out of the car? So we did that for a little bit. And then in January, I figured out how to get my car or my wheelchair into the car, because I mean, there's so many parts and it's heavy, and
Yeah.
it's just like, you don't want to scratch your car up, you don't want to scratch your whole wheelchair up. But anyway, so we were able to do that, and that's been really, really the freedom, because now I can go wherever I need to go. So
Yeah, what this makes me think of too is like to be able to ask for help and see that you have so many people in your life who are willing to help, but it can be difficult to say, I need my people right now, or even people that maybe you didn't expect would be there for you. But it
Yeah.
sounds like you really, and I don't know if it was easy for you in the past to ask for help, but it sounds like you had to really start doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we were very accepting of anybody that wanted to help at this point. Anybody who wanted to bring us meals, great, bring us a meal, that's awesome. Or, offer to give rides or whatever. It was awesome. And I did have, um, we haven't gotten into this part yet, but when I did get back to the gym, I did have a few strangers or people who had just seen me in there. They're like, hey, how are you getting to the gym? And they would give me their phone number and say, I'd be happy to pick you up and, take you to the gym. And it was just like, wow, like some people that you don't even know, they have like 4 kids of their own. I had one lady that she would put them in childcare while she worked out. And I'm thinking, you're busy. Why would you want to come pick me up? I'm like, and it was just really nice that people were there to support me, just even total strangers. So
That's so cool. Something else you had mentioned that I wanted to go back to, well, there's a few things. So one was you were on day 43 of the challenge when this happened,
yeah.
and yet you still tried to do the best you could 4 days later, like after something so impactful on your life. And you said that it served as a good distraction from like the what if, and it kept you very present. Do you think you always had that whatever it takes, do the best you can mentality? Or do you feel like that was more so forged through this
That's a good question. I I mean, I realized, in my physical therapy and everything now that I really like a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I'm beginning to realize I like challenges. This is like really good. Um, so I think it was just part of who I have always been, that I'm just this is a challenge and I'm gonna just keep going. Like,
Oh,
this is just part of what I do in my life, I guess. So
that's so cool. Yeah, I think that, I mean, n- just to be able to complete that challenge alone, like without any sort of injury occurring, is a big deal, let alone to
yeah.
do it after an extreme injury, surgery, and life change. So that's just that's another level of, I believe, champion mentality and thinking, to be the champion for yourself every single day, show up, continue to execute and overcome. And I think there's great reward in overcoming something every single day. And on top of that, you then of course went on to continue competing, which we'll talk about that more soon. But do you feel that that maybe had an influence on your road to pro?
Um, I mean, yeah, I think so. It was just that, that mentality to keep going. And even though it's hard, that, we can still do it. Like all the adaptations at the hospital where I would let them know, is there are there the other protein choices, or I would let them know about my specific diet, and they were so accommodating.
Wow.
So it's like, if they made something that, was super fattening or wasn't very high protein or whatever, they gave me the option. I could always have a grilled pork chop or grilled chicken breast or whatever. They offered me that, and they would, I don't remember what it was, but I would ask for certain things like gluten-free or whatever. And they were so accommodating. And so I feel like, if you want to do something, you can totally do it. And that was kind of the same thing with getting to the gym, because it was like I'd already decided to compete, but I wasn't even working out the gym, and I had to figure out, how am I going to get to the gym? How am I going to make this work? And I think that, and people stepped in to help me with that. And I think when there's something you want to accomplish and you want it bad enough, just doors open, and it can happen. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that you're a great example of that, and that's so true in anything in life, to be able to persist against the odds or against adversity and say that I deserve this and I'm worthy of the effort it takes to get there. I think that can be very life-giving. Something else you mentioned was how your church came together for you, and the women of the church really showed up. And I wanted to talk about your faith and the role of your faith through this. You had shared on your Instagram a verse that had been on repeat in your mind. So can you just talk a little bit about the role of God in this, your faith, how that relationship supported you in staying present or maybe seeing purpose in this?
Yeah, I felt I mean, from the very beginning, I just felt comforted. And I always felt like God was with me. I mean, I've had that relationship with God my whole life. I feel like whenever I'm going through hard things, or even when I'm going through good things, prayer and having that connection and relationship with God. And um I really felt like, I mean, there was times I'll have to
Mhm.
say there were times where I'm like, are you listening? Um,
Okay.
that I just from the very beginning, I just knew that I had been comforted, and I knew that everything was going to be okay. So I just knew that. And when I was in the rehabilitation center, um, I knew everyone was praying for me. I had so many people telling me that they're praying for me, and all these people that I know from all over the
Yeah.
country, and cousins and aunts and just friends and everything. And I remember, one morning I'm pushing my wheelchair outside in the courtyard, and I'm like, are you listening to them? I'm like, I have prayer warriors out there, and they're all praying for me. I'm like, and so there were moments where I'm like, you've got to be hearing all their prayers, and eventually I did get my answer to that. But it wasn't no, I was in the rehab hospital that I remembered that a couple weeks before my accident, I had when we're in my religion, we get what's called a patriarchal blessing when we're teenagers, um, or whenever we feel like we're ready for one. And it basically um, tells you some of your gifts that you've been given, that you've had from before you were born, and some things that you'll develop while you're here on earth. And so I was just, driving to the gym about 2 weeks before this accident happened. And one of the things came to my mind from that blessing that said that I would not have a life of ease, but a life of accomplishment and achievement. And I remember thinking, my life hasn't been that hard. Like I didn't really understand that. Um, it was like, well, I mean, I've accomplished a few things in my life, and life hasn't been that hard. So if this is hard, then okay, I'll take it. And so it was in the rehab hospital that I remember that I'd had that. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is part of, the plan for me, that, in order for me to learn and grow while I'm here to become better, then this is part of that. And so I just kind of felt like whatever was in the future was going to be okay. Like if I walk again, great. If I don't, that's okay too. I was ready and willing to accept whatever that was. And I feel like, going through this experience, you understand now what other people in wheelchairs are going through. And just the whole uh the parking and the like, it just that we getting in and out of buildings that don't have handicap accessible things, and then just like the struggle of like your bowel and bladder that don't work anymore, and just coming to that understanding of so many people that I never would have experienced before, because I hate to say this, but sometimes when you see someone in a wheelchair, you see it as an object. You just see the wheelchair. You don't
Mm.
see the person. And I feel like this has just changed my whole perspective. And I think if that's what God wants me to learn, to be able to come to understand, sorry, I don't want to cry, but to make connections with people, and to learn to love people more, then, that's okay.
That's
We're going to
beautiful.
live, we're going to die. And what we gain from this life is going to, is gonna help us. And so I'm okay with that. And so I feel like, okay, whatever it is you want me to learn, I'm here to do that. So I think it's just a little humbling
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I'm not in control of my life. I'm not, I can do what I can do. I'm excited about certain things. I can search for goals, and I can work for them. But, when it's all said and done, it's not really your life. You're not in charge completely. So
Amen. That's the truth right there. I think it's amazing that you're using it as an opportunity to love and to share and to accept the humility that comes with it as well. Have you felt like people look at you like an object at all?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, but most of the time, no. I mean, which surprises me. I feel like there's more people out there who are ready to help me, give me a hand, or to smile at me, or whatever, than there are that just kind of, and it's interesting because there will be some, and that's okay. It's totally fine because I get it. I've been there. When you, especially like as a competitor, you feel so healthy in your body, like you walk around and you've got, this health going on. Like for me, I feel like I didn't have I had a few, injuries, with
Yeah.
working out, your typical elbow, tennis elbow or whatever. But I mean, you feel so good in your body, and you get your car, you can go to the gym, you can go hiking, you can do all these things. And to see somebody who can't do that, it's like, oh, like you'd never want to step in their shoes. You know what I mean? Because you have all this ability. And then to be there, and then it's like, yeah, I get it. If somebody looks at me like that, I totally get it because I was there too. And but I also feel like I have so much capacity now, even in a wheelchair, all the things that I can do, and all the pioneering that has gone on for us through the ADA, for us to be able to do all these amazing things. There's wheelchair tennis, there's wheelchair CrossFit, there's like so many opportunities to do in a wheelchair that we can live just as amazing lives as we did when we weren't in a wheelchair. And so a lot of good has come through many, many years of advocacy, for people in a wheelchair that can't do what everybody else can do. So
Hmm. Yeah. Is that part of your mission now too, to like inspire other people who are in wheelchairs or even maybe inspiring other women, especially the masters competitors, for taking care of their body, maybe preventative efforts as well?
yeah, I feel so. I mean, I would love for more women to come into wheelchair bodybuilding, those that are in a wheelchair. I know there's a lot of people playing tennis and doing other sports. I'm not sure why wheelchair bodybuilding is not as popular. So I'd like it to become so. I mean, it'd be great for us to be as big as the men, because the men have, they don't have any problem with competition, because there's a lot of them in it. And I'd like to grow that, but I also feel like, yeah, raising awareness for a masters competitor, and things that might happen at the gym that you don't know about, and with your body changing because you're hitting those older years and your hormones decrease and your bone density decreases, which is what my main issue was. And so, yeah, definitely, I would definitely give my 2 cents on the Smith machine safety.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And yeah, so I mean, I think that, if you're a competitor and you're over 45, and most people probably already do this, getting their blood tested. And I did all the time. I've always had my blood tested every 6 months. And keeping on top of the hormones is an important thing. So I would say, so August, like almost a year before the accident happened in August, I started on progesterone because I was starting to have some issues and had a blood test. And my test showed from a year before that my hormones had dropped in 1 year. And so it was like, okay, I'm starting to get into the menopausal, area. I was,
Mhm.
let's see, I was 51. Yeah, I was 51. And so from in 1 year, from 50 to 51, my hormones dropped, right? And so I started on progesterone in August. Um, so as your hormones drop, you lose bone density. It's part of that. And which I didn't really, I'm working out, I'm working weights, you don't think about your
You
bone
wouldn't
density
think
because,
that. No.
you're eating healthy, you're working out hard, and but when your hormones start to change, you need to be a little bit more aware of that. And so then I had started on progesterone, which really, it helped a ton. It was night and day with some of the symptoms I was having. And and then I had my surgery. So then what also happens is my surgery put me into like 3 months of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so when your bones are already starting to decline, doing nothing makes it worse. And
Mm-hmm.
so having that 3 months of doing nothing, I think compacted with the bone, and also my core not being strong as it was before because of the surgery, and I wasn't able to do core work. So when I went in to do the Smith machine, I already had two things against me. There were I didn't have a strong core like I did before. I wasn't wearing a waist belt, which I don't know if that would have made a difference or not. I don't know, but it could have. I wasn't doing that. And also on the Smith machine, I also found out, besides the fact that I might have been turned around, that you should not use the Smith machine like a regular squat. You should use it like a hack squat. So
Mm,
then your back is straight instead of your glute sticking out. Because usually when you
great
do
lesson.
a squat, you've got your glute sticking out. And so there was a video that Body Bio put out. I put it
Mhm.
on my Instagram, that he explains that you need to have the straight back so you're not putting pressure right there. That's where my spine broke, was right there on that pressure. And so as long as you're doing the hack squat, then and do it properly, then and your back is out of the equation, then Smith machine is safe. I think we get away with it a lot because everyone's younger,
Mm,
and I think the reason why it happened to me is because I'm older and I had low bone density. And so I was just right in that right position, that, it just hit it right at that right position. So um to just be aware, like get your bone density checked at, when you're 45, or when your hormones start to change, and keep on top of that. And then just be really safe with your spine, when you're working out. Just make sure you are doing it properly. And I've worked out my whole life, and I mean, nobody ever told me to do to do it that way. And I just didn't know. None of my trainers ever said anything about not doing it that way. Um, so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know I just, when you're doing, when you're performing, workouts, I just make sure you're doing them safe and so, properly. It's just, I don't know how else to say that, but maybe look it up on a video, or I don't know, but anyway.
such great points and lessons. I think one of the takeaways I'm getting from this is not just to keep on top of health markers and get them checked, but also to be considerate of the fact that when we don't train certain muscle groups or body parts, we're putting ourselves at risk of injury. So even though bikini is usually glutes and shoulders, and we're not generally training a lot of abs. I mean, at least I'm not, and I've talked to others who it's not really ab training is not really a part of the routine or any core specific training that would help with stabilization other than vacuums maybe. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good reminder as well that neglecting it is probably not our best bet just for the sake of an aesthetic too.
Yeah, core work is important, and it helps with so many things, especially with your, I don't know. I think core work is good, even though maybe we don't do it as much. I mean, my trainer did have me do core work before, and so I was working my abs before, but
Yeah.
I just, when you don't, I think you maybe have a more compromised back, maybe. I don't know.
Mhm. Oh,
But
definitely. That makes perfect sense. And then going to your point about form and gym safety as well, I think it's so common also for things to get perpetuated, like you said, because injury, there hasn't been high reports of injury, or maybe a lot of younger, less vulnerable bodies as far as bone density or not coming off of a hernia surgery 8 months ago, those types of things. It just doesn't get seen as important, or those things aren't stressed because they can afford to maybe risk it, you could say, even though they
yeah.
can't. It's just not identified because it's not causing a problem. But you happen to be an example that, okay, maybe, yes, maybe you can perform it this way for 3 or 4 sets as you have in every time in the past, but there could be a time where this improper execution will get you. So we see this a lot in the strength training communities and the bodybuilding communities, where sometimes the sacrifice of form is encouraged for the sake of lifting more weight or finishing a set.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a valuable lesson that be mindful. You know, maybe that's not the best advice just because other people are doing that.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because now that I'm working out, when my husband works out with me and he sees anybody on the Smith machine, he will go and tell them
That's
the
amazing.
proper way to use it. And it's funny because he's like, don't do it that way. You know, and he's like, there's my wife. She's in a wheelchair.
They're
So
like,
it's
well, I'm
funny.
not doing this at all now.
Yeah. So he's telling everybody whenever he sees them on there, he's like, don't do it that way. And
Mm.
so
Let's talk about your husband, actually. I'm glad you brought him up because clearly he was there for you immediately. You guys have been together for 30 years.
yeah,
Awesome. So
thanks.
amazing. So, how has he been a support through all of this? And what has that looked like in your marriage?
He's been so supportive. My biggest cheerleader. Um, he's been there by my side through everything. He bends over backwards, I would say, just to help me with whatever I need. And I mean, I would cry sometimes at night when we would say goodnight because he took such good care of me. And I
Mm.
would just cry and just say, I'm so grateful for you and everything that you're doing for me. Um, so, I try not to take that for granted, all that he does, because he really does bend over backwards for, whatever I need. And it's really made our relationship stronger. Um, it's made me appreciate him so much more. And I was going to say something, but I can't remember. Oh, so he's had a couple of injuries himself, or, sometimes where he's had something done. And I'm like, "Ah, I was never as compassionate as he has been for me." So he was mountain biking and he
Mhm.
fell and broke his hip socket.
Mm.
And so he had a fracture in his hip socket. So he was in a wheelchair when we went to Disneyland and like on crutches and stuff like that. But I remember I was not that helpful to him. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
get it yourself. You can, I'm like,
Yeah.
and so for him to like be so caring and go out of his way to help me and all of this, I just feel awful. I'm like, I will
Mm.
never treat you like that again.
Oh.
Because I feel like when he's gone through his trials, I'm like, come on, you can do it, But no, he's been great. So he tries to come to therapy when he can, and um helps me out at the gym, and just what, like, he'll set things up, like he'll know I'll need things out of the way so I can get to the laundry room. So he'll just make sure everything's like, he thinks ahead, and he thinks like my kids don't, they're like throwing stuff around the house. I'm like, I can't get into this room. But now I can get down on my bum, and I scoot around on my bum a lot.
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to get in my son's room and I need to like pick up some things or whatever, and I can't get the wheelchair in, I'll just hop down and just scoot around on my bum. But he's been great. My husband's great. I'll just say that. And it's just I think I've had more love for him now than I have in the past, just because he's been
Wow.
so good to me.
That's so special. You know, that's something I wanted to address with you too, is that we see this positive, bright, inspiring, hopeful Charla. But I imagine there have been those, yes, God, are you listening? And also, I feel awful, or I want my independence back. What were the lows like for you?
There weren't very many lows. I'll have to say that. And if there were, they didn't last very long. Um, so I'm trying to think. I think one well, okay, so after the competition was over, or the challenge was over, I had about a month before I found out there was wheelchair bodybuilding. And that was probably a hard time for me because I didn't have anything, you
Hmm.
know, immediate to work for. And I'm going to therapy every day. Um, still struggling to get around. And I remember just thinking, how am I going to get through? Because in the beginning, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever it takes. And nobody really knows how long it'll take you to get where you need to be. Or they say, at about a year, you'll get everything you're going to get. And then after that, that's kind of where you're going to be. And then some people say, oh, maybe 18 months. And so you're kind of thinking a year out, 18 months, maybe I'll be walking by then, or, whatever. And so I remember those first 3 months are hard. And so after this contest was over and I kind of had nothing, and it was beginning to be like, I have to sit in a wheelchair for how long? Like it was beginning to like sink in that this was not going to be fast. Like I'm going to have to deal with it. I can't drive. I'm dependent on so many people, and it was kind of a low. And I remember thinking, maybe I could just go to sleep and sleep through this until 9 months or a year and wake up and then everything's good. Like so it was kind of hard getting through that. But I just kept going to therapy, and just like, hey, whatever it takes, got to get through a day at a time.
Wow. So then a month later, you discovered, okay, there's wheelchair bodybuilding. How did you discover it, and how has it since changed your life?
So the Whitney Jones show was coming up in October, and I had competed in that the year before. Wait, when 2023? Yeah, the year before I competed in that. And I had some friends that were going to compete and had some friends that were going to watch. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. And I was working in physical therapy, and I mentioned to my therapist that I was going to go watch the show over the weekend. And I said, do you think there's bodybuilding for wheelchair users? And he's like, yeah, I know I've seen it like on Instagram or something. It's like, I know I've seen it. I know it's out there. And I'm like, okay, I wonder. And so I go to the show and have a great time. And it's kind of weird being in a wheelchair. And it's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
it's just weird. Everywhere you go in public, you're just like, I don't know what people think, but yeah, I'm sure eventually we just don't think about it. But anyway, so I got excited, watching people, and was like, I wonder if I could do it in a wheelchair. So I came home and went on my laptop and started researching and found wheelchairbodybuilding.com. And I got really excited. It was like, no way, I can keep competing in a wheelchair. This is awesome. And then I find out that it's through the NPC and the IFBB. And I'm like, I've never heard of this. I didn't even know it existed. I had no idea. And so I, reached out to the CEO, Nick Scott, and I'm like, hey, when are the next competitions? Because I didn't know, the dates or where or when or anything. And so I found out that the Arnold was the first one. There's like 2 amateur shows for wheelchair every year. One is the Arnold, which is around March 1st, and the other one is Wheelchair Nationals, which is in June. And so I just got so excited. I couldn't believe it. I was like, yes, I want to do this. And I just, try to find out how do I do it? And what are the poses and all of that. And so, um, you know, just that information was life-changing. It was like I had a new goal. I had something to work for. I could actually keep doing what I enjoy doing. And so I got all ready to do it, and then realized, wait, and I found Amy and I asked Amy if she'd be my coach. And then I'm like, wait, how am I going to get to the gym? Because I'm not even driving right now.
Yeah.
So I had to figure that out, which I would, because I had rides to physical therapy. And so I thought, okay, if I can get either have them drop me off from therapy and then just have another ride home. So I started out with my husband would drop me off at the gym on his way to work. And then I would get my ride to pick me up from the gym and take me to therapy and get home. So I started with that. And then if it was days that didn't work out with my schedule for my husband to drop me off, then I would ask a friend. And so I just started asking. And so I was able to get to the gym every day. And then I wanted to swim. And there's this place called Ability 360. It's all set up for wheelchair users. It's the pool, and they have a weight room and everything. And so I would go there. I'd have a friend who wanted to start working out. And so she agreed to take me over there, and she'd work out and I would work out, and I'd get to swim in the pool. So it just like things just started happening for me. Doors started opening so I could work out and get my cardio in and everything. But I still had restrictions. I could only lift up to about 40 pounds at that point. And then I was still under my core restrictions from my surgery, because that was 12 months. So things started getting easier. I was able to use my core a little bit more. And then by January, I was driving, and I was also able, all of my restrictions were lifted. And so it was like a whole new year, you know, it's exciting.
Yes.
So so I was just so excited and kept, you know, kept going.
So awesome. Yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing. It gave you that next thing to look forward to and work towards. And obviously you had to gain not just a new perspective on this entire division and understand it, but that means posing, and it means progression, and it means getting to a place where you're bringing what they're expecting. And actually the judges had told you after your shows that you had impressive conditioning, and were even asking you how you did it. I heard this on a Glam Girls podcast, and I thought, well, that is super awesome. So I was hoping, I know you talked about it there, but aside from swimming, can you just share again like what your training looked like for the conditioning aspect?
Yeah, I have a trike that I can sit on and pedal. I don't go super fast because I don't have a lot of strength, but I can pedal. And it does help get my heart rate up. It doesn't get up like, you know, it used to. That was the hard thing, is that my heart rate just wouldn't get up super high. But I just had to, like, this is the best I can do, you know, and I just kind of did the best I could. But I had a trike, or I have a trike. And so I would ride that a couple times a week and then swim. And swimming is mostly upper body. Like I could tread water if I'm straight up and down, and I have this aqua jogger around my belt, and I can just, my legs will move. So I did that for quite a while. And I can if I lay on my back, I can do some kicking, but if I lay on my stomach, I can't kick. I don't know why. It's just, I have no hamstring or glute muscles back there, you know, it's just all quads. And so, so there are certain things I can do in the pool. And so I just started doing that. And I was able to get a good workout. So between the pool and my trike, I was able to get the cardio in. I did try using the hand bike, but it was just so much pressure on my shoulders and arms that I couldn't sleep without my arms going numb at night. And so I kind of had to lay back on too much arm, because you use your arms for everything. You know, you're pushing your wheelchair, you're, you know, lifting yourself up with your hands, everything you do with your arms. And then with weight training, you're, you know, working out. So when you're doing bikini, you're doing legs probably 2 times a week, right? Shoulders maybe twice a week. You kind of intermix that.
Mhm.
Well, with wheelchair bodybuilding, you're working upper body every day. So I'm hitting shoulders twice a week. I'm hitting chest twice a week. I'm hitting back twice a week. And then I'm adding my arms into that, my biceps and triceps. So it's like every day is arm day.
Yeah.
And so it's like to add another component of, you know, cardio with your arms. And I know the men do it. I know people can do it. But I was just, you know, if I can use my legs to do some cardio, then I will. So that was helpful to be able to do that. And I just love swimming. I love getting in the water. And so that was just fun for me. I looked forward to swimming every day, you know, every day that I was going to be in the pool. So
Yeah, that's so awesome and innovative. Also, how did it impact your nutrition, from nutritional intake to, we know that it affected your cooking. You kind of started using only a couple spices and it was more plain, but how did it affect intake, if at all?
well, comparing my calories to what I used to have when I was training, it's gone down. I used to be, when I was in prep, probably 17 to 1800 calories in prep. And then this, I've been about 1500 calories in prep. And it varies a little bit. Sometimes it's 1600, sometimes it's like 1200. Oh, it kind of varies, but mostly right around 1500. So my calories are about 200 less than what they were before. And, you know, my weight is so crazy because when you lose muscle, you lose body weight. And
Yeah.
so my stage weight used to be 124, like 124, maybe, I think it was like 122. I might have been 122 at Masters Nationals, but usually right around 124. And so I knew I had lost 13 pounds from my acts. I knew right away. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so I could be, unless I have more muscle, I could be 10 to 13 pounds for stage. And then I was 112 for wheelchair nationals. And so, it was about right. So
That's
it's
cool.
weird when I think that I weigh 112 pounds. That's
Yeah.
so crazy. It's crazy because I'm 5'8".
Right.
And, for me, I'm like, I've never weighed 112 pounds like in my adult life. But it's just because when you lose muscle, you just don't have the weight.
Yeah. Well, do they have weight divisions for wheelchair bodybuilding or how does that?
Well, trying to think if they have it for the men. I know sometimes they weigh. They might have it for the men, but for the women they do not because
Not
there's
enough.
nobody, there's not enough. Yeah. So we only have one division. It's open women's bodybuilding. so, so yeah. But
Okay.
uh yeah, and just cooking, it took me some time to learn, how to do the cooking. And I usually just do batch cooking. That's what I've done before in the past, where I just make a bunch of protein, bunch of vegetables, a bunch of my carbs and have them ready to go and just like measure it each meal. So that's, I had just to do the same thing. Going to the grocery store is a pain. So I usually have
Oh,
my
yeah.
husband do it, or now I do home delivery, which is
Smart.
really nice. Thanks to COVID, we,
Yeah,
we
seriously.
can do curbside pickup or home delivery, and it's so much easier. So that's been nice. There's just been some nice perks with COVID that helps with the disabled or people who just have a hard time getting into the store. So
Yeah, that's so great. Or people who don't even want to go shopping at all.
yeah, yeah.
So, obviously you've progressed into wheelchair bodybuilding nicely. You said that you had a lot of comfort on stage, especially when you saw Becky because you had recognized her, you've been in front of her before. And then you went from the Arnold Amateur to the Nationals, which was the first one and where you earned that title. What was your feedback at that show? And what are you, well, beep, 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 back up, hold on. I need to give some context to this question because it's kind of a big deal. So after that show, you were interviewed by Nick, who you had emailed, who's the guy for this. And he interviewed you and he said he was going to try to get you to guest pose at the Olympia. So why don't you tell the audience what the update is on that?
So yeah, I was approved to guest pose at Olympia,
So
and
awesome.
it's yeah, so exciting. And being at the Arnold and knowing what like the meet and greet is like and what the expo is like, because that was my first experience to all of that. It's got me so much more excited for Olympia because I know what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And so and just thinking that I'm going to be backstage with all these bikini Olympians, I'm like, this is going to be awesome because in wheelchair you're with the men, and so like at the Arnold when we competed I was with the men's division, like I wasn't even I
Interesting.
didn't talk to any women, and then the same thing with wheelchair nationals, I was part of the men's division, and so like I was the first woman on the stage because bikini and all the other women didn't start till after the men's division was over. So it's kind of
Oh,
nice that at Olympia I'm going to be backstage with the bikini ladies. It's like finally I'm with
your people.
my people. Yeah. So that's exciting. Um, so I get to guest pose, which means I'm just putting together a posing routine. I don't have to do quarter turns or, anything like that. So my posing routine can be pretty much whatever I want. So I want to, be able to put in whatever makes my body looks the best, whatever pose makes, turns out the best. So it's kind of fun to be able to do that. And my choreographer, my posing coach, she is a Russian ballerina. She now lives in the United States, but she was a ballerina in Russia. And so she's unique. Well, actually, she's competing today in Tampa, the Tampa Pro. She's
Oh,
IFBB Pro. And her routine it makes me cry every time I watch it. It's just so beautiful because she does ballet in her routine, and she just does it so well. But anyway, so it's fun to work with her because she's got some great ideas, and so I'm excited to get that, finalized and put together really well. Got 10 weeks, and then Angel Competition Bikinis offered to sponsor me as a sponsored athlete for the Olympia. So they're going to make me a suit, and I'm excited about that. So,
Awesome.
yeah. And the feedback I got from the judges, if you want to go into that,
Yes, perfect.
um, from the wheelchair nationals, actually one of them asked me, he's like, so do you only have to pay for half a bikini?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, yes, isn't that the awesomest thing? Because like instead of $600 to $800, I'm only spending like $300.
And you
So
have like only to tan this part of your
yeah,
body.
you'll have to tan half the part. Yeah. So anyway, but the comments I got back were great conditioning, and then build your shoulders, and then thicken up your back, which I've gotten before, which I know I need to put on muscle. That's just the way it is. And then Steve DeVore just said just put on overall size. So at some point, I hope I can have an off season to actually do that, because I feel like, the Olympia I had a little bit of time, but it's not a lot. But
Mm-mm.
I think you can still make improvement in your shape, and you can put on a little bit, a size between, because we're, putting on the calories for that, and then we'll trim down again before we hit stage. But I think I feel like when I looked back at my 5 bikini competitions, I improved with each one, whether it was with posing, or it was like core control, or my overall shape of my glutes, or whatever. I feel like if you just keep going, you're gonna make improvements. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I can say I stepped on stage a few times, not looking better, but after I got conditioned, I looked better. And I was like, okay, note to self, don't do that again. But technically, I got better, even regardless of the not so great showing. So, I think that's one of the best parts about bodybuilding is that you're always seeking improvement, and there's so much joy in that process because every day you're executing, you're showing up for yourself and your goals, and you get to see that progress and go, okay, well, now what? And it's a very exciting thing. So it sounds like you're getting ready for the Olympia, and then after that, maybe going into a grow season.
So I have the option to do guest posing at the Arnold, which would be in March. So that, that's 6 months. So yeah, I guess I could probably get in some good months of growth there, which will be good.
That's
So,
awesome. So, what's your overall goal in the pro league?
well, I want to grow the pro league.
Mhm.
So, right now, because Jen and I are the only active pro IFBB pro wheelchair, there's no one to compete against. So I think, as guest posers, we just have that opportunity to keep training and to keep, trying to better ourselves, but hopefully to inspire more wheelchair women to come into competing, so that we can grow the sport. So, I know there's a couple people that, are interested. Hopefully they'll do it next year. And then I know one lady that's in Colombia she's done like 3 shows, and she looks phenomenal. And I'm just like, come to the United States and get your pro card, whatever it takes. But because in the men's division, there's so many international competitors that come to Olympia and come to Arnold. And so it's like, let's get more international ladies on here.
That'd be
So
awesome. So the goal is to grow it and get other
yeah,
people to say, okay, I'm going to do this too.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. To keep improving myself. So
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like such a rewarding journey, and that of resilience and pushing through. One thing I'm dying to know is, what is it about bodybuilding that you personally love? Because I know I just shared like something that I really love about it, but what is it that you love about it to continue going no matter what?
Hmm. Oh, it's like, what do you enjoy about hiking? I don't know. Like, it's just, it's fun and you're in nature. And for me, I think when you're working out, it just feels good and you just focus. It's like you just focus on that strength. I don't know what it is. I mean, why do we bodybuild? Why do we like it? It's just, I don't know. It's just something I like to do. I like to push myself hard. And, it's like you get into the gym on days that you maybe don't have a lot of energy or you don't feel super great. But as soon as you start working out, it's like everything changes. Like there are days, especially close to show when you're low in calories and everything. You go in there and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go light. I don't care. I'm just gonna go light. I'm just gonna go through the motions or whatever. But then you find yourself working super hard by the
Yeah.
end and you're like totally into it and you're like, I am pushing so hard. This is so great. It's like it just happens. I don't know why, but it's just something I love to do. So
Yeah, I have days where I'm like, okay, just get in there and start. And
just
even
start.
if, yeah, if you get, if you have to split this workout up and do another one tomorrow, it's okay. But then I find like once I get into it, I'm like, what was I thinking? This is the
This is
best thing ever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Make sure you bring your headphones. Sometimes that helps too. Get that music in.
Oh my gosh, that is the truth. The other day I forgot and sometimes even with headphones, I'm like, I get overstimulated with the music in the gym too, where I just like pause it, but I still keep them in because then I'm like, it's kind of a focus mode. But yeah, I recently forgot my headphones to the gym and I was like, ooh, how am I gonna get through this? Because it had been a while. But you know
Yeah,
what? It reminded me like there was a time, Celeste, when you didn't even listen to music when you worked out, and
it's
it was
true.
nice actually. But I find
Yeah.
myself like compulsively going like this to like tuck the headphones in, even though I wasn't wearing them. I was like, well, that's you just pretend I'm tucking my hair behind my ears.
Oh, that's funny. It's like glasses when you wear glasses all the
Yes.
time. It's like, oh wait, I don't wear those anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, that's embarrassing. So okay, I gotta get your best advice. Now, I want to hear your best advice for somebody who is thinking about competing but hasn't yet, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
So just anyone in general thinking about competing?
That's
Okay.
right.
Uh, I think you have to do at least one. Like if you're thinking about it, find a coach, find whoever that knows the way to hold your hand and get you through it. Because it's so fun and it's just even if you don't do it again, it's you learn a lot of good things. And I think just the whole experience of the diet and the training and putting on some really good heels and a suit is just really it's really fun. So if you're thinking about it, uh, I would do it, and you can do it cheaper than more expensive. You can go the cheap way and you go the more expensive way too. There's financial ways of doing it. And I have a friend who's competed before, and she didn't have a coach. She didn't have I don't know what else she did. Oh, but she just did it on her own, and she just did her own makeup and she did her own hair, and she just was able to buy the shoes and the suit, and she paid for her posing coach, and she just was like she just did it and she did really well. And so it's like you can do it without a coach. You don't have to, but a coach is very definitely helpful. But if you just want to get your feet wet and get started, you just get going, and there's a lot of information out there to be able to help you get through. um so that I mean I don't know, it's just fun. So
Love that.
I love it, so I recommend it to anybody who's interested.
Absolutely. And now, what's your best advice for someone who's on their road to pro?
um keep going, keep going. Like I didn't realize how much I wanted a pro card until like after my third or fourth show. Cause in the beginning, I'm like, this is fun. Who wants to be a pro? The amateur league is really fun and you're making friends and everything. And I was talking to a friend of mine. We connected because she was a competitor and I was a competitor, and we hooked up, and I go to her yoga classes, and we sat down for just a lunch one time, and we were talking, and I said, why do you want a pro card? And to me, she said, it's to show that I have accomplished something that I worked really hard for. And I feel like, and that's kind of how I feel like with wheelchair bodybuilding. I'm like, if I had gotten my pro card on my first time out on stage, I wouldn't have felt like I earned it. I feel like it's something you earn that shows you worked really hard. And so, even if I hadn't gotten it on my second show, I still would have kept trying. I still would have like, okay, what do I have to do now? And um I think the pro card is something that shows that you have worked really hard and you've paid the price to do what most people haven't done yet. And I think if you're doing well in bikini, and that's, it seems like a good sport for you and you're getting really close, to keep going. I have to say that when I was at Masters Nationals, there was, I think, 9 of us in our group. And I'm trying to think, 2 have already gone on to get their pro cards. And it's just been fun to see them get it after so many times, trying. And then to see them earn it, and then to see them do their pro debut. And it's like, that's so awesome that that they just keep going and they earn it. I think if you just keep trying, is at some point you're going to earn that pro card. So I'm just excited that it actually happened for me, and that, it was approved. It was like something that had to be approved and gone through. And I just think, I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but I'm just, really grateful that they found me pro worthy, worthy of a pro card. And it's just kind of interesting because you go, oh my goodness, I'm a pro. I'm an IFBB pro. This is really cool. So just keep going.
That is so cool, and such great advice and insight, and a reminder too that it's okay to strive for something and let it be an example of all your efforts and hard work. And I want everyone to be able to follow your journey, not just your road to the Olympia, but also beyond that. So how can everybody find you and connect with you?
On Instagram, I am IFBB Pro Fit Chick on Wheels. Find me there.
Awesome. That's where we'll put in the show notes. So you guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. You'll be able to not just find the ways to connect with us, but also a full episode summary, a bulleted list of the topics we covered, as well as the episode timestamps. So you can share that with your friends, your family, your teammates, let them know what resonated with you, get the word out about wheelchair bodybuilding as well for women, and let us know what you thought about the episode. Tag us, share your thoughts. It means so much to me, but it means so much to the athletes too, to know that their story resonated or inspired you. So please feel free to tag us and let us know what you think. And with all that being said, Sharla, thank you so much for your time today.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure, truly. I'm so grateful.
Oh, it was fun to connect with you again.
Yes, you too. And I'm going to keep you on the line. I'm going to say to everybody else, thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.